Warning, the following video is exceptionally nerdy, even for myself, and I collect toys. Viewer discretion is advised. How's it going, everybody? It's TheNewSam here, answering the question of what I would do if I were in charge of creating a new Transformers continuity. In fact, I've already started on one. I started on it about 10 years ago with a friend of mine. We officially dubbed it Transformers New Beginnings. The idea is to eventually make this into a comic, so I'm not going to go into too much for the way of plot, because, don't really want spoilers or people stealing my ideas. But essentially, what it is a brand new whole continuity universe for the Transformers, featuring a lot of the characters we know and love. Obviously, we had to, for the purposes of a comic, keep the cast down considerably because that's just a lot of work. But I keep adding characters as the story calls for it. So I've been writing it and coming up with ideas and plotting things out for, like I said, about the better part of 10 years. The story takes place on Cybertron. I have not taken the story to Earth. In it, the original Transformers created by Primus are... actually, there was only one. Went by the name of Matrix, because, well, you'll see why I have terrible names for things. Matrix, of course, was the first Cybertronian tasked by Primus to populate the planet. He was given a spark with a special ability to, create more sparks. Not to, kind of split off from his own, but to create brand new ones. At the time I was writing it, actually, sparks were still a very controversial subject, because there wasn't, too much supporting fiction for them. Now they're so commonplace that, it's not really a big deal anymore. But, just so you know, I was doing it before they were cool. Anyway, the true purpose of Matrix was to raise an army for when Primus's nemesis Unicron arrived to destroy him. The army was originally supposed to channel their energy through Matrix, who was then going to defeat Unicron. However, Unicron attacked too soon. Most of the Cybertronians were wiped out, and as a parting gift, he used his power to split Matrix into two separate entities. One named Prime, whose head looks like the Autobot logo. One named Tron, whose head looks like the Decepticon logo. So, they kind of look a bit like Prowl and Soundwave. Prime and Tron go to separate ends of the planet, and they begin doing what they originally were supposed to do as Matrix, populating the planet. Eventually, over the course of, centuries, the two groups meet somewhere in the middle. And immediately, conflict over whose creator is better breaks out, escalates into full-blown planetary war. And this is the first war in Cybertronian history in our continuity. Nearing the end of this war, Prime and Tron, sensing that their lives will soon end, get their bodies rebuilt into carriers for their life-giving sparks, thus creating the Autobot Matrix of Leadership and the Decepticon Matrix of Power. I've got two types of characters that can carry the Matrix. There are the Matrix Keepers, who, like Ultra Magnus in the G1 movie, hold the Matrix inside of them, but it doesn't really do a damn thing for them. And then Matrix Bearers, who, like Hot Rod, becomes Rodimus Prime when he puts it in, or like in the War Within comics when Optronics takes the Matrix into himself and becomes Optimus Prime. So that's pretty much how they work. And of course, each Autobot will become a Prime, each Decepticon will become a Tron. This is how we get, eventually down the line, Optimus Prime and Megatron. So the second generation of stories takes place during what's known as the Matrix War, after it's discovered that in order to defend the planet should Unicron come back, you need not one Matrix, but both. So a war breaks out over, who gets to control both. And it is during this Matrix War that Alpha Trion, Matrix Keeper of the Autobots, and Shockwave, Matrix Keeper of the Decepticons, are both going about their own ways of trying to figure out the secrets of the Matrix, delve into it. And In doing so, Shockwave manages to modify his own body to be more receptive to the Matrix's power, and Alpha Trion uses the knowledge inside the Matrix to locate Vector Sigma, the legendary computer that created the first spark. Being Vector Sigma itself being a conduit to Primus in this, Primus kind of communicates directly through it. A series of campaigns throughout the Matrix War have been outlined. The first one, of course, being the mission to secure Vector Sigma. The Decepticons catch wind of it. Alpha Trion is wounded in battle. Shockwave does not join the front line, but instead, since he can't adapt himself to become any more receptive to the power of the Matrix, he decides to build a robot that can. So, he stays behind in his lab, creating Mega, who upon receiving the Matrix becomes Megatron, and proceeds to lay waste to the Autobot troops that are trying to secure Vector Sigma. It isn't until a young soldier by the name of Op, I just called him Op, I didn't go for, Optronics, Orion Pax, any of that nonsense, just Op. He's only there for like a few panels anyways, it doesn't really matter. He tends to the wounded Alpha Trion. Alpha Trion, sensing greatness in this particular bot, hands him the Matrix, which turns him into Optimus Prime. He battles Megatron, and the Decepticons retreat because, well, it's Megatron. The Decepticons retreat. That's just how they roll. Mostly because Megatron was not expecting resistance in the form of a new Prime. So, they secure Vector Sigma, and thus begins the story of Optimus Prime and Megatron in this particular universe. Bunch of side stories going on during the whole thing. For example, I've got Prime as the second prototype for a series of just generic soldier robot body types. The first one, of course, was went by the name of Magnus, and Magnus, at the time of Op becoming Optimus Prime, Magnus was a field commander on the front lines of one of the battles. This will, of course, anger Magnus, who feels that because he and Op are so similar, he should be the leader. And creates a great dynamic where he temporarily defects to the Decepticons. Shockwave gives him some armor upgrades and things so that he can try to take the Matrix from Optimus. Shockwave's actual plan, of course, is to gain control of both. And when that fails, Magnus sends himself into exile, comes back later wearing the armor, and rejoins the Autobots as Ultra Magnus. I have several arcs already planned out. There is the beginning arc, where I actually have Primus and Unicron do battle, and become the planets that they eventually are. On a side note, Primus will transform from Cybertron into a robot in this comic. That's actually one of the purposes of the Matrix of Leadership and Matrix of Power. They activate his transformation cog or whatever. So there's the beginning. There's the first Cybertronian arc. There's the I don't want to go all Magic the Gathering and call it the Brothers War arc, but it's the Prime and Tron battle arc. Anyway, the Matrix War arc. After the Matrix War, there's a brief, not really a story arc, but Unicron will come back, and the fight will culminate in a fight of all of Cybertron against a planet-sized Soundwave. Now, I'm not going to mention how that comes about, but let me just say right now, it's brilliant. When I wrote it, I had goosebumps. It was amazing. Following that, we have the Nemesis Prime arc, wherein the scrapped third prototype in the line that created Magnus and Op, the scrapped third prototype will gain some of the essence of Unicron and basically become one evil bastard. So there's the Nemesis Prime arc. The Nemesis Prime arc ends in the return of Megatron as Galvatron and Soundwave as Sound Blaster. And that's about where I've gotten to right now. But I mean, I've plotted out a good 6 or 7 story arcs. One day I hope to write all of this down. Well, a lot of it's written down, but I mean, I hope to actually write it all. And with any luck, when I do, I'm going to have it all up on the internet, and it is hopefully going to be as amazing to everybody else as it is to me. So this is the new Sam saying, Transformers New Beginnings. Look forward to it. I may get it out there one of these days. At the very least in the form of the outlines for the varying story arcs, but I hope to actually get like a solid written version down, maybe even with, you know, full-on comic panels and everything. Yeah, that's my take on a new Transformers continuity. See you guys later.